Man of Steel made more money than James Gunn's Superman. And James Gunn's Superman is set to flop and potentially lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Oooooof! Didn't I predict that this movie was going to be terrible? I held on hope, and I prayed that this movie was going to be good, and it absolutely wasn't. I said, more likely than not, this is not going to be a great film, and I'd be surprised if it makes a huge profit. But I had so many people in every one of my comments in every single Superman video I've ever made saying, No, Superman's our guy. You don't know what you're talking about. You never picked up a comic book. No, Superman's the greatest movie ever. Well, I'm glad you like it. Unfortunately, the rest of the audience doesn't seem to enjoy it very much because that movie is probably going to lose at least like $300 million when this is all said and done. Remember, this movie needed $1 billion to break even because they spent way too much. They spent $360 million on the budget alone for production, not including a $150 million marketing budget. That is a $500 million cost. That is $1 billion to break even. And unfortunately, Superman has only grossed $220 million worldwide this past weekend. Yeah. Remember, this movie came out on Thursday, and I saw this movie on Tuesday. They had special premieres on Tuesday, and it is now Monday, and we're sitting at $220 million. Only $125 million domestically. Ooh! They wanted at least $150, and even then, that's a stretch because they need way too much. Way too much was writing on this movie for it to perform this badly. That's not all, yeah? Because $125 million, as bad as that is, this is a lower domestic box office gross than The Man of Steel did in 2013. Henry Cavill's Superman, the first and very divisive entry to the DCEU, right? That movie made $128 million domestically, not including inflation, mind you. So the reality of that total now is probably like $150 in today's money, and Superman 2025 just made less than that. Oof! Well, this is what happens. If you make a bad film, people are not going to turn out. There is no superhero fatigue. Superhero fatigue does not exist. What the people have is bad movie fatigue. Terrible bastardization of their Marvel and DC characters fatigue. And that's the reason why nobody's turning out to watch these movies. Has nothing to do with superhero fatigue. If every movie we ever got was awesome, people would turn out to watch it. Okay? But in the case of Superman, you know, you kind of shot yourselves in the foot. Even if this movie was loved by everybody, how in the world can you expect to make a profit when you need $1 billion just to break even? Why do they set themselves up for failure? Why do they do this to themselves? It is the greatest anomaly that we have ever seen. That Hollywood, their budgets just keep on getting worse and worse and worse. We're talking the average blockbuster now spends like anywhere between $400 to $500 million on average, just to make a film that's probably going to gross like $600 million. That's a loss of at least $400 million. That's crazy, dude. Crazy. Godzilla Minus One is the template. Make a film for like less than $20 million. Make it good. And you will have amazing box office returns. It is amazing to me how Hollywood cannot learn this lesson. Right? They literally paid Robert Downey Jr. $100 million to come back as Dr. Doom in Avengers Doomsday. So, you know, James Gunn basically brought this on himself. I mean, how in the world is DC expected to build another cinematic universe when their last one kept on flopping? They flop after flop after flop. You needed this movie to be huge. You needed this movie to be amazing. And the best way to do that, to keep the budget under $250. That's what Hollywood needs to do from now on. They refuse to learn this lesson. Make your budget small, you will have a successful film. The return on investment you get when you have a smaller budget can be used to then fund all of your other sequels. It's almost like Hollywood needs to take a basic economics class, because anybody else, any other corporation that lost this much money over and over and over and over again, they would be out of business so long ago. But these people are protected. They're protected Hollywood status, and I guess that's that. Well, obviously, money can't be what drives them. It has to just be their own vanity at this point, because money would hardly be the thing that's keeping Hollywood alive. All right? At least this movie wasn't that woke. I can tell you that much. That was like the only great thing about it. Like I said, I had moments in this film that I somewhat enjoyed, but they were undercut by way too much slapstick Marvel MCU humor, and I hate it, dude. I wanted this movie to be serious. Not dark and broody like Man of Steel, but also serious enough to be earnest like Captain America. That's what this movie needed to be. We did not need to get a Guardians of the Galaxy Superman movie. All right? But it's going to get worse, because now we got Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, coming out. You know, that drunk woman bastard at the end who calls Superman a biatch, all right, and then takes her dog back. That's not Supergirl. I don't know who that's supposed to be. Never mind that we don't even know when Batman is supposed to join this universe, right? It's going to be funny if Robert Pattinson's The Batman 2 makes more money than any of the films that James Gunn's DC universe makes, because as you guys, some of you may know, only Joker 1 and The Batman, the first Robert Pattinson Batman, were the only profitable films that DC has put out. That's the last time they made profit. That was like, we're coming up on 6 to 8 years. That is crazy, dude. Oh my goodness. How can Warner Brothers go this long without making money except for Joker and The Batman? And now they're going to lose probably another, $300 million on Superman, I guess, but they'll consider that a success, because at least we didn't lose $1 billion. At least we didn't lose $500 million. That seems to be the gold standard these days. As long as you didn't lose $500 million, you're golden. So it's full steam ahead. It's full steam ahead for James Gunn's DCU. Supergirl will come out, and if that movie does even moderately well, they're going to keep moving. And we're just going to get slop after slop after slop, unless James Gunn learns that he has to correct course and do it quickly if he has any hope of the cinematic universe taking off. Godspeed, Warner Brothers. Godspeed.